Welcome to the REI Foundation podcast, where we cover all the steps and strategies to make your real estate dreams a reality. Now your hosts, Jason and Pili.
Well, hello again, and welcome to another edition of the Real Estate Investing Foundation podcast with Jason and Pili. Super excited for today's episode. It's going to bring you a ton of value. We have Irby on the show. Jared, how you doing?
All doing great, man. Glad to be here.
Well, happy to have you. And Irby is the president of Irby Home Buyers and the Irby Group of Companies. Is an experienced entrepreneur with a unique and diverse skill set. Jared has opened and sold multiple successful ventures in his career, including 2 startups that were taking over $10 million per year in revenue with significant cash flow and profits. He is highly skilled in marketing, sales, and business management. His diverse experience has required, and he was also attended the University of South Alabama on an academic scholarship, but left prior to graduation because his first successful venture startup had rapidly grew to over 100 employees. But he gone from there to started in buying and redeveloping real estate 10 years ago and has never looked back. That's how we first met Jared, actually at a mastermind. He's a licensed real estate professional pursuing a CCM designation, and also over the last 10 years has flipped hundreds of houses and acquired apartment rental communities and transacted tens of millions of dollars in real estate deals. Well, there's a lot to dive in there, Jared. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, glad to be here. That sounded like a mouthful, didn't it?
Yeah, we jumped into it, man. I was like, we can go 10 different directions here to start, but it's also me. I'm just a gorilla just reading off papers here, so we can go from one to the next and let you better refine what you're doing. So with all that said, and you had these startups, you were into a number of different businesses. Do you remember why was the reason you said, well, I'm going to try this real estate thing and let's get going?
Sure. So in my other businesses, we started making some money, and I was pretty young. I dropped out of college, which my bio had a fancy way of saying I'm a dropout. But I dropped out of college to kind of pursue business, and frankly glad I did. But we started making some money in that, and I decided real estate was a great way to invest the profits we were making instead of, blow it on sports cars and stuff like that. Although I did that a few times too, but instead of blow it all, invest in rental properties and started flipping houses. And that's what kind of gave me a little bit of capital to get started in that. It just felt like a good way to safely build wealth.
Awesome. And so looking at your business today, if you were to say, walk onto an elevator and someone says, Jared, what do you do? What do you say?
Well, so I would say that I own a real estate redevelopment company. We're taking distressed assets, distressed properties, and basically putting them back into service. And so we do that in quite a few ways. We do a lot of single family deals. We did almost 150 single family houses last year that we either flipped, wholesaled, or bought as rentals. But we also do some apartment complexes when we can find those that are distressed and need us to come in and fix them up. Same thing, some commercial properties. We've redeveloped a few office buildings and also some retail type buildings, and even flip some land and stuff like that. So I kind of deal in distressed properties. When there's some kind of distressed situation is really what we deal in. And the core of our business is Irby Home Buyers, which is a home flipping company. Essentially, we wholesale and flip houses.
How did you learn to do all this? Was it you just taking action? Did you have a mentor?
Yeah, well, I wish I had a mentor. That would have been really wise. Frankly, I just listened to some podcasts and just went for it. But that's kind of my personality too. But yeah, I mean, even at first when I got started, there really weren't any podcasts. I think I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and was like, man, I want to buy some rental properties. That makes sense. The math makes sense. So 10 years ago, it started as buying a rental house, a flip, another rental, doing a couple flips. And really, I was probably doing maybe 2 deals a year up until about 4 years ago. And then I started being a little more aggressive with it, doing, 5, 6, 7 deals a year. And then 3 years ago, I really ramped it up and decided to go full time in the business. and really ramped it up to, now doing, 150 almost last year, and then on track to do substantially more in 2019.
So that sounds like a lot of people out there that maybe you're dabbling doing 1 or 2 projects a year and just are trying to figure out how do I make this into a business? Do you remember what it was, if there was a specific instance that it really clicked for you that said, okay, I'm going to go after this full time and really just throw it down and see what can happen?
Yeah. So, I came to a crossroads where I realized, I kind of was winding down out of the last venture, and, and it kind of made sense as a practical transition for me. If I was in a different scenario, like had a good W-2 job or something like that, it might have been a harder transition to go full time. But so it's kind of, my story may be a little bit different than everybody else's, but that's what's cool about real estate is there's so many different, kinds of people in it, whether, this is what you want to do full time, this is what you want to do on the side to build wealth, which is how I started. And then had a unique series of events that really let me go full time. It really depends on what somebody's goal is. Do you want to do this full time? What's cool is you can do most of the stuff at night after your job, and then you can massively accelerate your wealth, because not only do you have a great income, but you also have, the potential to really leverage and scale your assets.
See, that's incredible. Now, if you were to look back over your 10-year real estate journey, is there something, if you went back to the start, that you would do differently, or what advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say probably the first 4 or 5 deals I would completely do differently. Most of it had to do with, overpaying for properties, and not necessarily because I didn't run I have my formula right. I had my formula right. Like I knew I needed to buy it at this percentage on the dollar minus repairs, but I severely underestimated the repairs and overestimated what I could resell the houses for. Similar problems on my rentals. I would underestimate the amount of repairs needed to get in. And I also overestimated, not necessarily the rent, but like maybe how quick the projects would get done and how quickly you could, recapture your investment.
Any quick tips for investors who are listening about that same problem, just really not ideally understanding how to estimate repairs?
Yeah. So, that's a whole probably book in of itself, but you're kind of more in the, construction industry even than I am, with maybe some of your other ventures, but, you really got to have some good contractors on your team. That is the key to it. And when I first got started, I was just trying to use the cheapest handyman type guys. And, you're not going to get, first of all, you're not going to get the quality. You're not going to get it done on a timeline, on a budget. But even when you're getting into the projects, you really got to trust those contractors to give you good numbers up front. Because if you have good numbers up front, it's relatively easy to know if it's a good deal or not, And so the biggest tip that I think would have helped me looking back is to really make sure I was doing business with the right contractors, on the front end. So I really knew what the renovations were going to cost, and also have a good plan going into it. Maybe you can tell I'm more of an action guy than a planner. And there is something to be said that you have to take action in real estate. But you should also go into it with a really good solid plan.
And so looking at how your business has grown, I would consider when you started out, you're doing a couple of deals a year. Maybe you were a one-man show. How does your business look today with 150 plus deals a year?
Yeah, so it's definitely gotten more complex for sure. We have 2 full-time acquisitions people that are out negotiating directly with sellers. We have, in fact, we just hired a 3rd one, so it'll be a total of 3, and we're expanding into some other areas, like a little bit out of the city a little bit. And then also we have a sales manager that's over them, handles training those guys and gals, and really making sure that we're buying properties really deep, handling all the higher level negotiations, daily role playing, that kind of thing. I've got a COO that helps run the business as far as, keeping all the plates spinning at the same time. We've got two lead managers that just handle taking inbound calls, and following up with sellers, that kind of thing. I've got a dispositions guy that handles selling all of our properties and handles the closings when we're doing wholesale deals. And then, we have a property management company we work with to handle managing the rental portfolio. I've got a personal assistant, and then we've got another office assistant that helps us around the office. And then we've got a bookkeeper. So, we've got, 10, 12 people now total, and so it's a lot different than when I first got started, for sure.
Who was the first hire?
The first hire was actually an assistant who handled the bookkeeping and handled all the paperwork. Basically the stuff I was bad at, is kind of what I focused on, which, I don't know if you mind if I go off on a little bit of a tangent, but, one thing that I've learned in business was really to make sure to hire, to basically eliminate your weaknesses, right? Don't try to make your weaknesses better. Try to make your strengths better instead. So my strengths are sales, marketing, networking, big relationships, that kind of thing. And, I'm never going to be a bookkeeper. I'm never going to be the detail guy. So my first hires were really related to what I was bad at. So my first hire was a bookkeeper and then a lead manager, and I would still go out and negotiate directly and handle things. And then ultimately, it kind of expanded from there, and we started adding on more positions to where I could kind of eliminate myself. But I started off with the stuff that I was bad at first.
Yeah, it's great advice. Do stuff you don't like and stuff you're bad at. What's some solutions for successful hiring, finding the right people?
Well, I'm a really big believer, and I would say 2 years ago, I thought it was kind of hokey to think this way, but I'm a big believer in really setting the core values of how you operate. And, so as our company, we have them, posted up all over the walls and everything, but, team first, massive action. Those are our two big ones: positivity, honesty, integrity, and complete domination. Right. So, I don't know what your listeners' core values may be, but it's really important to kind of identify those. And then when you identify them, you start kind of putting out the vibes to attract those type of people. And, so, obviously you could go into, average, writing a great ad, hiring ad, which you can Google and figure out how to do that. You can figure out where to post those ads and things like that, but really making sure that you're hiring people that have the right core values for what you need. And then really identifying what task you need those people to do, and having a really clear, great job description for those people, so that when they do come on board, they really are not floundering. And you can make sure through the interview process, once you have, basically the task that you need done, you're able at that point to really make sure that you've hired the right person to fill that position. Which one part of that is personality testing. Like we use the DISC test and some others, and so I would say if you're hiring any kind of salary or W-2 position or even commission position, that you do a personality test, make sure they match up with your core values, and make sure you have a really well-defined task for those people to do when they get started, so that you're getting the right person from the beginning.
You touched on creating Google ads and coming from your background, your marketing background. What would be some successful marketing techniques, whether it's in real estate or business in general, that you employ?
Well, so what's funny is I don't know that I'm a great copywriter or anything like that. I'm really not. But what I am good at is massive action. So even if your ad's not very good, get it in front of everyone. And so one kind of pro tip that I've got is social media is really the best way to recruit folks. And it's been probably our most successful, advertising medium. We obviously have a job site that you can apply online and everything, but we drive traffic to that with social media ads. We post them on the normal sites, Indeed and things like that, but we really try to get it into job searching groups. We try to get it to go viral and find friends of friends of friends who, are kind of that's kind of pre-screened a little bit. I really want to work my referral network, and social media is one of the best ways to do that, because you can kind of connect a level or two down from you. Maybe it's a friend of a friend of a friend. And that's kind of pre-screened a little bit better than just hiring some random person off of Craigslist.
Yeah, absolutely. And now looking at your business today, what's something you're working on in your business to improve today?
Well, we're really focused on improving all aspects, but the biggest thing that's kind of always a constant battle in real estate is, we're a marketing company at the end of the day, right? We market to buy deals, we market to sell deals, we market for tenants. So we're really focused on, trying to find those new trends in marketing, really dialing in our marketing campaigns, from every direction. That's where we've really decided to put our focus. Before that, I would say it was really on sales and acquisitions, like really making sure that we had great training for our sales reps, making sure that they knew how to negotiate really well. So we spent a lot of money and time and energy training those people to be really good at those tasks. And now we're really focusing on, let's give those people more opportunities to close deals now that they're so good. So
what does the next 12 months look like for Irby home buyers?
Oh man, it's expansion. I kind of set it up to go to shoot for the moon. To be honest, I'm kind of a big thinker, and so we're crushing it in our market, and that's fun. And if you were to stop there, nobody would ever judge you. But we're going into other markets, guns blazing. So I would say the next 12 months we'll probably be in 3 additional markets, and kind of running it from our centralized location, and then having acquisitions people in those individual markets.
Oh, that's incredible. Now, how do you source another market that makes sense to you?
Well, obviously some of it's geography. We're focusing on, areas that we can easily access. Like, so a lot of stuff in our state, we're in Alabama, in the very, southern edge of or the South Alabama. So, we're focused on, all around us, the major cities in Alabama, major cities that are close to us. But we're also looking to make sure that, I don't want to be, I personally like the smaller market vibe. We're in a market that's maybe less than 500,000 people, which, in the grand scheme of things is fairly small. And that's just where I like playing around. I feel like we can be a big fish, and we can kind of, move the market ourselves a little bit. So we're kind of focusing on that, on keeping, we're trying to focus on like identifying markets that are very similar to ours, similar price points, similar competitiveness, similar houses, similar, sellers, basically, so that we don't have to change our processes too much.
That's a really good point about when you're going into similar markets, having similar pools of people you're dealing with. So your processes, you don't have to relearn the curve, right? You can basically.
Yeah. So, do I think we would do good going into Tampa or Atlanta or somewhere like that? I think that our salespeople are extremely good. I think that we would do very well in places like that. But I think those markets are so competitive that, it's a different process that you have to do. And so I don't want to really change my business processes now that we've set them. Obviously we adapt with the currents, but if we're going to do it on a large scale, we really need to try to keep the consistency as much as possible.
Can you think of a lesson that maybe another real estate professional has installed in you that's really impacted your business in a positive way?
Well, joining, me and you met in a mastermind group, and that was just a game changer for us, because I got started without a mentor or anything like that. And, I went to one little mastermind group, And I'm like, holy crap, there's a lot of smart people out here. I mean, listening to the podcast is great. And I encourage everybody to listen to yours and consume all the content they can. But when you can interact with people that are doing similar things to you, or you can interact with people where they're going where you want to, or they're already at where you want to go, man, that's a game changer. And so I don't know if there was one specific piece of advice, but it was really being around guys like you and other people in our different groups that we're in now, and really kind of going to events and really just learning from other people. You get nuggets here, nuggets there, that kind of thing. But it's really just the general vibe of just stay learning and get immersed in it,
Yeah, it's amazing just the give back mentality that people have at these events, where you're able to just learn so much and people are so open, and also the realness and the attainableness of it, because there's people that are in your direct network are doing it on a massive scale, helps you accelerate your processes as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's some sayings, you're the average of your 5 closest friends. And I kind of think that's true. So, if I want to go to the next level, I got to hang out with people that are already at the next level, so that's kind of, maybe nobody told me that specifically, but that's something that's kind of rubbed off on me from really masterminding with high level folks, is to stay learning and to give freely too. Right. Like, I get so much out of giving back that I almost feel a little selfish, because I honestly get way more than I give, just because, even when I impart knowledge that maybe I have that someone else doesn't, something always clicks in my head too. So, that's one thing too for your listeners is, they might not be skilled in one area that I am, but they probably are skilled in an area I'm not. And they could probably give me, some information. And once you do that, the doors are wide open, and you're just going to get even more than you could ever give. So it's pretty cool. And it's a lot different than some of the other businesses I've been in that have been more tight-lipped and competitive and things like that. You really, in other businesses, that doesn't really happen that much. And so, I would definitely take advantage of all the information and all the connections and networking that's out there. It's such a huge business, a huge market, that there's so many people willing to freely give. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I love that. And if there's someone listening today that's thinking about getting started, or is just sitting on the sidelines and looking for that action step to take, what's a step that someone starting out should do right to get going today?
Well, look, I'll be honest, I might not be the best person to answer that, because that getting started has never been my problem. It's finishing has been my problem. But, you got to rip the Band-Aid off and do it. I mean, even me, we've been talking about going into a market for another year, and have probably been ready for 6 or 9 months, but, we wanted to keep getting better and better and better and better. Well, frankly, I probably should have done it 6-9 months ago. So sometimes you just got to file your reservations away, and you just got to jump in. What's the worst case scenario? That's how I try to look at things in business, is what is the absolute worst case scenario? And then how do I mitigate those risks to make it worth the potential reward? And then once you have those calculations, you just close your eyes and jump. I mean, and I don't want to encourage a newbie to go out and do something dumb, but, once you've done your research, at some point, you just got to pull the trigger. You can't just sit on the sidelines. I don't know how to say it any better, or if there's any formula to it, but mine is I do my math and then I close my eyes and jump. So
I love it. So looking at just your success in business, can you think of a routine or a core process that really helps you accelerate your business?
Well, I think really focusing on routines and processes and systems, that's really accelerated our business in general. I don't know if any one, process helped, in general, but actually starting to map out our business and map out how leads flow, initially, and then how our follow-up processes work and how our sales processes work. When you really sit down and intentionally develop, okay, here's step 1 when we're talking to a seller, here's step 2, here's step 3, and then you really kind of get broader and broader with it, pretty amazing things start happening, because then you can, start playing chess a little bit. You can move things around. You can eliminate steps that are causing problems. You can tweak things. You can identify where problems are happening. So ours has been a real process of just continually focusing on building systems and really treating it like a business from day one, and day one for me, I would say was maybe 3 years ago when I went full time. Before that, when I was doing it part time, I didn't really focus on getting, trying to make it a business. I didn't, it was just Jared Irby flipping houses, right? Well, I should have from the beginning made it Irby Home Buyers, and it's a corporation. And even if it was just one person, it's kind of that you fake it till you make it kind of thing, right? Like if you start doing something, you will eventually become that, right? So I would say, that's kind of a key to everything, is really to kind of make it a little corporate from the beginning and make it an actual business. Treat it as a business. Treat it as different than your bank account. When you make a big lick, don't go blow it in Vegas. You go blow it on buying more houses, and that kind of thing, and really treating it as a business. And really, then when you treat it as a business, focus on your processes. And that's when things really start getting magical.
That's amazing. A few more questions. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, sure.
You talked a lot about your business and your mission statement. Do you have some words that you live by?
Well, that's a little bit, closer to home, but, I really am focused on, our mission statement for our company is, we want to build, 100 leaders and buy 2,500 houses. Right. And I think that's going to change over time, but, I'm kind of living by, I want to build an empire for my children, and their children and their children, and something lasting, and not just to be a tycoon, but so I can really make a difference, in the world. I think that if you work hard, you get a lot, you can give a lot. And, I'm starting to be in a spot good enough to start giving some and giving more and more and more. But, the more I do, it's kind of fun and it feels really good, and you're able to help a lot of people. And, so I'm focusing on building a big company because I'm a pretty big fan of capitalism. And I think that can solve a lot of problems in the world by, creating jobs, creating growth, creating income for other people. So that's kind of my personal mission is really to kind of, have some capitalist values without the monopolies and things like that. But the good parts of capitalism, because I think it really helps society a lot.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for that. And we really appreciate your time in the show today. For others that want to learn more about you and connect with you, what's the best way to find you?
Sure. Best way to find me is on social media, Jared Irby. Look me up, add me as a friend. We're also, I've got a mastermind group that we're working on getting going. Do you mind if I say what it is?
Go for it.
It's called Empire Forge is the name of it, Empire Forge Mastermind. It's just kind of a meeting a couple times a year down in our office, and our first one's in April. But yeah, so you can look me up there, empireforgemastermind.com, or the best thing to do is hit me up on social media. I'm happy to answer any questions or, do anything that I can for anybody, if you're started or wherever. I just love answering questions and helping people solve problems.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Jared.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I appreciate it, man.
Good. And for everybody listening, thank you too much for you also for listening today. This is Jason with the Real Estate Investing Foundation podcast. Have a great day. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning into the REI Foundation podcast. Check back next time for more awesome tips and strategies to launch your new you in real estate.